Hello, everyone. We have Rock today with us. And Rock, in two sentences, what was your business idea and how does it change the world?
Well, it was just an idea to create headphones that will sound really good and enable audio engineers to really hear what they are doing when they're mixing songs. And with that, change how things sound on the radio, in the supermarket, when you're driving your car, and hopefully convey the message and the emotions of the artists better than ever before.
Great. And I heard it before, but what was the moment when you went from the idea in your mind to that breakthrough? Okay, let's make it real. What was the moment, a person? What was the trigger?
So, the idea actually sparked out of a problem, which is usually the case. So I had twins, two kids, and I was at the time being active in mixing a record for my band. And of course, having kids, it means you cannot really mix a record using speakers. You can't even, go to a studio because you have to be home and help out. So with that, I've experienced the terrible headphones that existed at the time, and then just tried to build something on my own. Eventually, a friend came over and said, "I want one," and another friend came over, and a colleague of a friend came over and said, "I want one, I want one, I want one," and eventually it's turned into a company. That was the realization. So basically, just friends and family telling me, "You can do this. It's possible. There is need for a headphone that sounds really good and really flat and neutral." And that then sparked the courage, basically, to leave my day job and start this from scratch. And the first important step was we call it P2, which is a government grant that enables startups to start basically from the beginning by giving us some money.
So you basically said you ask for help, search for help in technological park, with the government, with the founding, and things like that. So how important is it for an entrepreneur to be prepared to say, okay, I cannot do it. I cannot do everything on my own. I need some help. I need some mentors or some money from other people.
Yeah, it depends on who you are, what your background is, of course, what your financial status is. That's also important. But the most important thing in entrepreneurship in general is knowing yourself, have self-awareness. It's really difficult, and it goes for anyone in any field, not just entrepreneurial fields. Just knowing yourself, and it's really difficult when the environment that we live in is just pushing so much into our heads. From Netflix shows, from movies, from social media, from hearing stories about other founders that are super successful, and we always just see the top of the iceberg and never all the tears and sweat and tears, basically, that is beneath there. So there's this ideas or pictures that you kind of build about yourself, about your future, about how your life should look like, instead of drilling down into who you really are, figuring out what you're really good at, what are the set of skill sets that where you're really brilliant at, what is your genius state. Those things are super important. It takes time, but it starts with self-awareness or self-reflection. Just admitting to yourself that the pictures and the ideas or projections, the visions of your future might not be your own, but co-created by the environment that you live in, which is, by the way, normal. But of course, if you choose an environment that's not ideal, or is tricking you into believing something that's not true, that might not be the best way. And there's, of course, a saying that we all know, depends on, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. That is, as true today as it was whenever it was, created, probably thousands of years ago.
Excellent. So you are doing this about 8 years?
Yeah, so the project started in 2015 as an idea. That's basically when I had my first two kids, twins. The official start, the official launch and creating the company was in 2017 in February. So roughly 8 years we are in official form, where I'm dedicating, all the time and effort that I have to creating and now managing this company forward.
And can we see the final product?
Sure. So currently we have this one. That's the X1 model. So the headphones are made out of walnuts, stainless steel, leather. There's very little plastic involved. Partially because they were conceived in a garage. So whatever concepts were there possible, just kind of, they moved on from one iteration to another iteration to another iteration. And over time, these became kind of the shape, the recognizable shape, part of the brand identity as well. So even today, when we could do stuff in different ways, we're still using CNC machining for the cups. We are still just using basic materials that you can get anywhere, really, and really basic principles in designing the hardware for the product. And inside, of course, there is a speaker specifically tuned for this purpose, which is, again, mixing headphones, meaning they're made for professionals. This is not for watching YouTube videos. It's made for people that make, mix, produce songs, or maybe produce audio for video. So, for example, engineers for Netflix, or broadcasters, or I don't know, in Slovenia we would have the national broadcaster RTV, or others like that. So that's where we are. That's the product. That's what we do. And currently, I only have one product, which is again a part of the philosophy.
Great. So we said we will be talking about challenging the giants of pro audio world. So how do you do that, or how much is there how much competition is there, and what are your advantages?
So it's interesting. Now this question, I'm going to answer it completely different than I would like a week ago, because 2 days ago, or is it 3 days now, I had family visits, and they're from Australia. And we talked a little about the business landscape there. And I quickly learned something, or, well, not learned, more like I got aware of the advantages that we have here in Slovenia. And probably, well, some will agree, some will not, but I'll say this is absolutely the case for all audio. So the net salaries in Australia are a lot higher than here. And the costs of renting or buying facilities to create whatever in there are just so much more. And the taxes are kind of like the same. So in short, if we were to move our operation to Australia and employ the same amount of people to do the same tasks, which is definitely true, and we would have the same space, which again, it's definitely true, we would need to have it, we as a company would not survive. Simple as that. So the profits that we get from being here, and we call them profits, we are a profitable company, would just dissipate in a month. Basically, we would not be able to make the ends meet. So that would mean that we would need to either optimize something, or maybe, raise the pricing, or whatever we would need to do in order to survive. So just being in Slovenia, even though we are in the Western kind of like world, if you will, we are a part of the European Union, still we can compete with the giants because we are based in Slovenia. I'm not saying that our workforce is like super cheap, because it's really not. That's really not the case. But the overall differences in the income from our buyers across the globe versus what the income is here, we can produce a product at the highest level. We have the technology, we have the skill, we have the people to do that. And we can produce that roughly like 30% cheaper than the same product would be in Australia, or making it in Germany or France, or USA or whatever. So that gives us the opportunity to be slightly cheaper than the same product on the market from the giants, while staying competitive and profitable and lean, which is like super important. So the giants, we all know, they have like bureaucratic meetings, and decision making goes through like 5 levels before something happens. While over here, it's a matter of having a beer or a coffee or a lunch or whatever, and we make a decision, and the next day, we've painted the walls into red or green or whatever. It's just instant. So the things that I just illustrated are part of these advantages that we have as a company competing in this global headphone landscape. Does that make sense?
Yeah, great. Because it's interesting because everybody is in Slovenia is talking about being in disadvantage regarding our salaries and things and taxation and things like that. So it's interesting to learn something from the
It depends.
experience of.
Of course, it depends on your market. So if you are selling in Slovenia, then of course that is a problem. But if you're selling to markets that have higher incomes, then that's not so much of a problem. The illustration is the same with any tech gadgets. You buy a MacBook Pro or iPhone or whatever, in, let's assume it's like 1,000 euros, right? That for an average salary in Slovenia, which I believe at the moment is like 1,400, 1,500, something like that. It's basically like 2/3 of one salary, but the same Mac will cost again 1,000, maybe a 1,100. I don't know, in Zurich, where the average salary is like 6,000 euros.
Yeah.
So it's like we're talking. It's insane. So the differences are so huge and so big. There's many things that are local, and there's the micro and micro economic things that's going on. But when you're on a global marketplace like we are, meaning we sell everywhere, all European countries, Canada, USA, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, China, you name it, we're everywhere. So there's like a neutralizing effect, or like a smoothing effect of how we can do that in a global scale. And in that regard, in that link, in that dynamic, yes, being here is an advantage, of course. But if we are trying to say, are we selling this in Slovenia? No, we sold like, I don't know, maybe 20 pairs in 8 years. It just makes no sense. So that's the thing that we need to keep in mind when we are thinking about the advantages or how competitive a marketplace or a country is.
Excellent. So you mentioned all the countries that you cover, and we know that you have some remarkable customers, people who are really celebrities. How did you reach them? What was your approach to that, to marketing or reaching out to?
Yeah, so in the early days, it was just create a good product and somehow things will move forward. It was not a part of the plan. But eventually they started, reaching out, and I've learned that all these celebrities are just human beings. They have a phone number, and you give them a call, and you make a conversation, and that's basically it. So that's how it started. But now later on, after 8 years, I believe I can say that it's about having the courage to ask. And that's like super important. Imagine, I'm trying to illustrate that a little bit. So if you're on the bus station or whatever, and there's a stranger, and if you go and ask that stranger, can you please help me about something? Or can you please tell me something? Or would you please share the best advice that you got in your life? They're going to open up and they're going to tell you because you asked. So that's the important distinction when you're building a company, where we're building networks. It's just about asking. If you need a recommendation, if you need someone from like we do, like ambassadors, endorsers that are supporting our brand by, vouching for us with their own brands. Hey, would you do that? Are you willing to do that? How do you feel about that? And it's like 99 out of 100. They'll say, of course, dude, I love these headphones. No problems. Here's my picture. Here's my statement. Here's anything you want. So asking is definitely underrated when it comes to how to approach a marketplace and how to approach building the brand.
Correct. Oh, we have a question from the public. Maya says it's really good to have quality headphones, and where you can buy it.
So the way we structured our business is, of course, we have multi-channels like any normal company these days will have. So our primary channel, the one we want to have at the top, is definitely our own web store. So www.olloaudio.com, that's where you can buy. And we ship basically to all the countries. So that is number one. Why is it number one for us? Because we have the biggest margin. We keep everything for ourselves. Then the second layer would be having resellers or dealers. So these are basically stores, could be very tiny store, or it could be a chain of store. They have like roughly a third of the price is their margin. So that already kind of like makes our margin go to half. And then we have the first channel, which is distribution. Now, distribution shouldn't be mixed with reselling because distributors have specific local laws that they need to apply. They need to take care of many things, and they usually stock the product in their warehousing and they are distributing it to the resellers locally. They make sure that everything is right, that the pricing is kind of respected, that they have stock. That's extremely important. They do predictions, and because of that, we get predictions in our production as well, because there is a look back. So we have these layers of selling, and then of course we must not forget an extremely important sales channel, which is the word of mouth. So whenever you're buying something, it's very likely, if you don't understand it, or even if you do and it's expensive, what you're going to do is check with someone you trust, especially if they own it. But even if they don't, you're going to ask for the recommendation, or just, what do you think about this new car, computer, TV, or what do you think about going to Bali? How was your trip there? So, we always try to reference with our human beings that we trust, rather than you going through whatever list of best of whatever lists on the internet, or God forbid, asking AI, because that's just, in my opinion, stupid as fuck.
But as AI is a buzzword today, and people could think that you don't use it, but you do for your product.
So of course, AI is a tool. At least today, I still think of it as a tool, not a companion, not a friend, not a colleague. It's a tool. Hopefully, it will stay a tool, actually. So yeah, of course we use it. The basic stuff are like proofreading and all the things that we all do. But it's capable of so much more when it comes to predictions, when it comes to mathematics, when it comes to statistics and stuff like that. You can quite easily make it do amazing stuff. And in our case, we're using it for calibrating our headphones, which is basically, what is the input signal to the headphone and what is the output signal and how they differ, and what is the calibration needed to make sure that they align. That would be just the illustration. And in previous years, we did that, manually, meaning we would have like 2 charts on the screen, and the engineer would try to tweak the things until they would align. So it was human-made process. Now with AI, it's capable of doing so many more calculations and so many more averages basically in a 10-second process right now, which was usually a minute. And the results are very, very consistent. Also, you don't need to train the engineer anymore, meaning if somebody is on vacation or something, God forbid, happens to them, I don't need to introduce another engineer with, again, going through the consistencies and everything that's involved in human error, basically. It's just, press this button and it will do the trick. So AI is great for these kind of things. I see it actually every day when people are not investing their thoughts into creating the email, into creating the relationship. And that is something that bothers me to the point where I stopped replying to anything that sounds like it was generated by AI. If you don't respect me and you don't give me like 5 minutes of your time, but at the same In the same moment, you're asking me to read it and give you the 5 minutes of time to read it, then think about it likely, make a decision, then respond hopefully as a human being in a professional manner. But what you did was like a prompt and there you go. So basically what I'm doing is just, no, fuck you. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not a part of that. I don't like this game.
Great. Okay, so let's go a bit into the history. How does things match from your education to doing the first prototypes? You're somehow like standard doing the garage and expanding to the really successful and big company. And how does this happen?
Do you mean what was my journey from there, or
Yeah,
in general?
and how would you say for somebody who is thinking of building his own company, what somebody could learn from you, from your experience?
So I'm not really sure what to answer here. Maybe I don't completely understand the question, but the thing is that when you're in school, you're learning about the fundamentals. And those fundamentals, at the time when you're learning them, they seem like useless or valueless. Like, I'm never going to use this math in my life, or I'm never going to need to know this history lesson in my life. These kind of things. And that's what we usually talk when you go to, to a bar and we talk with friends and how was school? Until the moment when you're actually experiencing a problem in your line of work, and if it's your company, that problem could be like super valuable to you. And you remember, oh, I had that in school. And just that alone is super valuable. And if you can get further to, oh, I had that and I know where to look for it, that's even another layer. And if it happens that, oh, I know this exactly what it is because I've learned it through and through, well, there you go. Education is being paid, because you're never going to use everything that you've learned in school, but the concepts and the little bits and pieces can be applied and are applied every day in the real workforce. And if you have the capability to understand them, to see those moments and then connect them in between, see the dynamics between everything you've learned, then you're a powerhouse. You can literally do whatever you want, and the skills that you need, like the very technical skills, you can get them anywhere. It's a global village, so you can order 3D processing anywhere. You can order whatever you want, basically, but you need to understand it, because if you don't understand it, what happens is that whoever is selling you the service, in good faith, not in bad faith, will just deliver something that you didn't want or you didn't need. And then there is this cycle, which if you've been in the workforce, you know about these things. You order something to a specialist and the specialist delivers something that you don't understand. And then you say, oh my God, I've paid so much money for this and it's useless. Well, it's useless, at least partially, because you don't understand what you're doing. You don't have the fundamentals of whatever technology you're trying to develop. And that comes from school. Either, even if it's in the evening and you're reading stuff and you're learning by yourself, but understanding the fundamentals is extremely important. Understanding how AI works is important. Understanding how finance works, that's like a big topic where 99 out of 100 people have no idea what even taxes in reality are and how you pay them and where they go and how they're distributed. It's the money that I give to the government and I have no fucking idea how it works. And that's sad. That's like really, really sad.
Excellent. I like this what you said, and I want to know a bit more. How much does working on real physical product differ than on what's really popular, or some software, or things like SS and things like that?
Well, it's a different landscape altogether. So it's like comparing two very different industries altogether. Meaning, like I don't know if you're if you're working in tourism, it's very, very different than if you're working in, I don't know, guitar manufacturing or anything like that. So the hardware and the software is the same. Of course, they go through all the industries. You will find software solutions for every single industry, in every single company. And you will find hardware in every single industry, in every single company. It's just fact, I'm sitting on a chair, you have a desk there, you have a laptop, you have a light, and so on. So this is obviously the world we live in, is intertwined between software and hardware. That's just the reality. But as a company, if you're trying to build a software company, of course, there's a lot more competition, I would say, than it is in the hardware space. But at the same time, it's a little bit easier because the mistakes that you make can be fixed relatively quickly in comparison to hardware. So the turnaround cycle from one iteration to another prototype and so on is like super fast in comparison to hardware, and the lessons you learn. That's one thing. The other thing is software can quite easily, not 100%, but quite easily be distributed all over the globe. So you can work with whatever, whoever, whenever. And that is a massive advantage. In hardware, if you have a hardware team, of course, we can share pictures, but at some point, we need to sit down in the same room and look at exactly the same thing. And that is costly in whatever shape or form. So I would say this. If you're starting a company and you have a software idea, of course, go with it. If you have a hardware idea, of course, go with it. But be aware that hardware is extremely expensive in terms of the capital that you need. So in software, you might need maybe a little bit more brain power, at least in a stereotypical way of saying that. But in hardware, without a doubt, even if you're making the simplest possible thing, like a light or a stand for something, the simplest thing, you will need capital quite quickly. And even as a small, shop working something out of a garage, you'll need 5,000 euros quickly, or 10,000 euros. Like that's where it starts. While on a software side, for 10,000 euros, you can build quite a lot of things with today's pricing, basically.
Great. What would you say is a best or worst business advice you received?
Oh, best advice. I never thought of that, like in a way to articulate it to anyone on a live stream. I don't really know the best advice. Well, I do remember one extremely important moment, which was by my mentor, Primož Zelenšek from Tribole. It was like 5 or 6 years ago. I believe at the time I had like 2,000 or 3,000 euros left in the bank. We didn't have any sales, and it was like, basically, we were gonna die in 2 weeks. And I remember him saying, kind of like, you have to be courageous at sometimes and take the difficult route, because being an entrepreneur, it means you're gonna risk everything multiple times, again and again and again and again. If you're not willing to do that, then you're dead already. It doesn't matter. And if you are willing to do that, then the 2,000 euros you have, you're going to give it to Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. You're going to advertise for 2 days, and on Monday, you're either going to close your company or you will have some orders. And I'm still here, so there you go.
Great. Okay. When we are talking about mentors, what do you think about mentorship? Because I think they are not so common in business world like they are in, I don't know, in sports. We all assume that every good team or athlete has a coach or mentor, somebody who helps them. What about in business?
It's extremely important, but the thing is that most entrepreneurs, we are like arrogant pricks. We just think we know everything. And it's just in our nature, because we do need to know everything in order to move the needle. So that kind of gets ingrained into us at some point. And I've met a lot of people like me who are like hungry for getting free, but at the same time, we are not capable of letting things go. So I guess I'm just, still climbing this ladder of entrepreneurs. Of course, there are like Jurek Ness, for example. I've talked to him. he let go. He learned this lesson already, and many others did as well. I'm not there yet in this regard, so I don't know really what to say on this point, except that it's a game of patience, basically. I guess that would be like the closest I can get.
Okay. What surprised you most on your entrepreneurial journey about this entrepreneurship? What didn't you expect, but it happened, or it is like it is?
Well, what I didn't expect or completely misunderstood, again, coming back to the control that usually entrepreneurs want to have, is that sales are not something that you can turn on or off. So it was like, the idea is that, okay, you're going to spend some money. You're going to build the traditional Western approach of funneling. So you're going to spread the word to X amount of people. They're going to click your webpage or your ad, and eventually, 1% will buy this. And there's like a cycle to this, and it's like a math thing. So it kind of gets ingrained into everything you do, that the sales is something that you turn on and you can turn it off. And after a while, I've learned that sales really don't come from this. We just think, or we are misled to believe that advertising is the same as sales and that advertising creates sales, while I'm more and more inclined to believe and say that sales come from good experience by the final users. They share this all over the place in word of mouth, in little messages that you never see online, and so on. And that over time, so there's this time component there. Over time, it creates enough touch points for enough people, and enough of those people are in a moment when they say, oh, I need new headphones, that they would start researching and hopefully find you and remember you and then buy from you. Mm-hmm. So basically, sales is like, of course, there are ups and downs based on seasonality and based on what you're doing in advertising, of course. But overall, sales are like gradually, steadily going up if your company is doing well, just because of that. So I was playing with this earlier today, actually, with a colleague, just for illustration. So we have like Gorenia, for example, in Slovenia is a big company, right? If they would stop advertising, their sales for the next year, 2 or 3 years would kind of be the same. Because it's just a brand that's there, and we're talking about it, and again, it's the word of mouth. When you're gonna buy it or when you go into the store, of course it's going to be there, it's going to be in your listing, you will consider buying that. But they have 100 years or something. So that's the time component is extremely important. On the other side, there's probably some startups and we're doing the same thing, probably even better than they do for half the price or whatever, but they are not on your list. You don't see them and you don't consider them. Of course, they're going to need, of course, the advertising and word of mouth and so on, but they will also need time. And that together is what creates sales and constant sales. That would be my take on it.
Great. Would you do something different if you would start again?
Probably many things, but the irony in a way, or the funny thing about this question is that you don't know what's right or what's wrong until you did it, and when you look backwards. So there's a famous saying, I believe it's from Steve Jobs, saying you can only connect the dots looking backwards. You can never do that for the future. So yeah, I can say what I would do different, but the moment I would move one of those dots somewhere else, that would influence all the other dots that came after it. So it's impossible to say, oh yeah, if you were, I don't know, moved to Ljubljana instead of doing that here in Nova Gorica, that would be so much better because the talent is great or whatever. I don't know. Maybe we would die. Maybe it would be better. I don't know. So I can't really honestly answer something like I would do that different, because I don't know what the consequences of that change would be to where I am now.
Correct. So we're about the end of this discussion. Would you have some final thoughts?
No, not really. I just hope that whoever's listening or will listen to this in the future, be brave to ask. And if you have to ask me, do that. Just don't use AI.
Okay, great advice, I think. Thank you for a pleasant talk, and I think we shared a lot of good and valuable information. So thank you.